Ben, this is these officials hiding in sort of the endless flabby folds of bureaucracy, just passing the buck to whoever they can and hoping that it goes away.
Well, I do think that Hillary is responsible for this. She's responsible for all of this, because if she'd been a better candidate in 2008, then she would have been the president getting the 3 a.m. phone call as opposed to being just the Secretary of State. I think right now she is dealing with this within the context of a campaign, not within the context of how you would approach this in any other climate or at any other moment in the tenure of the president. What I'm more concerned at in this scenario is a problem where no one is willing, in the media at least, to go back and recheck the kind of statements that were made by Ambassador Rice and by others for days following this, when it was clear that Secretary of State Clinton herself knew within virtually hours of this going down that the narrative that they were selling to the American people was a false one.
So let's focus in on that. So you asked the question, Amy, what is she taking responsibility for? Let's ask it this way. What can she take responsibility for? She can only take responsibility for the negligence and failures that led up to the incident, because after that, any other thing she might take responsibility for has essentially been rebutted. The State Department itself has said, we did not put out information to the administration that suggests this was in response to a video. We did not suggest that there were protests on the grounds. All of these are facts now we know, and the State Department has openly said, we're not responsible for that misinformation. So where did that information come from? Why did it come out the way it did? And why was it repeated for 2 weeks? Now, that has nothing to do with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and I'll bet you the intelligence community has a similar story to tell, leading to tonight and a question for President Barack Obama. Why did your secretary or your UN ambassador go on TV repeatedly and suggest otherwise?
Well, we know that the State Department is responsible in that what we learned from that hearing at the House Oversight Committee last week, we learned that the State Department and the State Department alone made the call not to send additional security. Insofar as that moment is concerned, Hillary Clinton and the State Department are absolutely responsible. But I agree with you, Buck. Big whoop. We knew that the State Department was responsible, at least logistically, for some of this negligence. The buck, of course, has to stop with Obama in the end. Everyone knows that. The timing of this is incredibly suspect, as you say, with her boss currently slipping in the polls and a debate performance to make up for tonight. But I think what's also interesting, and I wrote about this too today, Buck, what's also interesting is that Obama has let her do this. If you think back, Obama has gladly defended some of the more embarrassing elements of his administration. He's defended Eric Holder in the face of Fast and Furious. He's had to walk back Joe Biden countless times for the things that he said. Tim Geithner, his whole economic team. Yet he's perfectly willing to let Hillary Clinton, who's been practically the only non-embarrassing entity of his team, he's perfectly willing to let her throw herself under the bus for his own political legacy. Now, just one last point about that. I think it'll be really interesting to talk to some of those 2008 Hillary supporters who might be harboring some ill will still toward Obama for the way that his campaign treated her in 2008. See how well this goes over with them.
This is a key point, and people were asking this question. I saw this on Twitter last night. People were saying, why would Hillary do this at this point? Obama needs her to, because this goes to the heart of his entire foreign policy narrative.
Listen, she's become a loyal foot soldier in less than 3 years.
I want to know what the deal was. We're never going to find out, but some kind of a deal was made behind closed doors. The narrative issue here, though, is this. When he came into office, he said the mere fact of his election would essentially calm the Muslim world. Not only have we seen that to be not true, and that can bring in the underwear bomber, in which we got lucky, by the way, that did not bring down a plane on New Year's Day, many other incidents around the world. But when we look at this, he decided to get involved in Libya. We were chased, all U.S. elements in Libya were chased out of that country after they burned our consulate to the ground, after they killed the U.S. ambassador. This is in the capital city of the resistance that we abetted, that we helped get rid of a dictator. This is a complete repudiation of his entire foreign policy mindset.
But I think Hillary Clinton is actually being rather clever here, because it's actually underscoring the lack of leadership at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I think now we have questions, as you're pointing out, of character, that the President of the United States is allowing his Secretary of State to fall on her sword, and an issue of leadership.
And I think always what it's like with the Clintons.
Is throwing this into relief.
You always have to see sort of the map of what's really going on behind the scenes. Yeah, and I think what this really sets up is a very interesting question, and perhaps in 2016 to Hillary Clinton on stage with Governor Cuomo. Well, I'm a leader who believes in taking responsibility when things go bad.
But it's still, guys, for me, the more damning aspect of the story is the cover-up. It's what happened after, as opposed to the negligence leading up. And this act of Hillary Clinton's does nothing to address what happened after
Absolutely
the incident.
No, of course
and
it
that
doesn't.
question remains unanswered, and it's still the most critical.
The timeline proves, by the way, that there were dozens of foreign fighters, possibly, we don't know, al-Qaeda-aligned elements involved in this attack. There has been no justice. We have not found these people. They're still roaming free in Libya. There are militias all over the place.
Right.
I mean, this is still a very dangerous scene. They have done nothing to address this.